Hi, everyone. This is Stephanie one last time for National Teen Lock-In with our final author, Miss Natalie Richards. I'm so excited to be welcoming her for our final author visit. I hope everyone's lock-in's going really well. So without further ado, I am bringing on Natalie Richards. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here, you guys. I'm really bummed that I can't see all of you because I think it would be super fun to hear how your lock-ins are going. But thank you so much for having me tonight. I've already got a stack of questions that I'm going to get to. But first, I just wanted to actually introduce you guys to my 3 books. I don't know who knows which ones. My first is the one probably most people have seen. This one is 6 Months Later. And this one came out in 2013. This is my memory loss book. I hear that's a theme tonight. So this is a book about a girl who fell asleep in study hall and she woke up 6 months later. She actually wasn't sleeping. She just forgets 6 months of her life and she kind of wakes up in a perfect life, but something's very wrong. There's a reason she forgot. So that's my first book. My second book, I actually compare to the old movie Heathers, which was back in the early 90s. This is actually a little bit of a vigilante book about a school photographer who sees way too much and gets a chance to level the playing field. So it kind of really talks about her getting in way too deep in a vigilante game and what happens from that. That book just came out in January. And then my third book, which comes out in October, is My Secret to Tell. And I won't tell you too much about that one tonight, other than it's about a girl whose lifelong crush ends up in her bedroom, accused of a crime, and he has blood on his hands. So those are my 3 books. I write teen thrillers. All of my books are not really, scary, horrifying books, but they're all books that kind of keep you up, wondering what's going on, what's happening to this girl, how is she going to get out of this? So that's kind of what I deal with. So I guess I will start with my questions. I'm going to start by telling you guys, I love being interactive, so I'm so sad that I can't see you guys all personally, but please send me whatever crazy questions you have. I'll answer anything. So don't be afraid to send a crazy question my way. I would be glad to answer it. So the first question I got was, what inspired 6 Months Later? Which is a little embarrassing because I'm sure that some authors are going to tell you, I went to an art museum and I saw a statue that was beautiful. I fell asleep at work, not that anyone would ever do that, or at school, but I did. So I fell asleep at work and now, before you judge me too harshly, I was a paralegal. That's a lawyer's assistant. I want you to think for a moment in all of your libraries about what that would be like, assisting a lawyer. So I kind of earned my nap, and it did lead me to a writing career. So there's that. So I fell asleep at work briefly and had either a daydream or like a nano dream, one of those ridiculously short dreams that I kind of nodded off. It felt like it was a second, but then I opened my eyes and it was suddenly snowing, and I had this dream in May. And it was so creepy. Even though it was this little short dream, it creeped me out so much. It started spinning a lot of what if questions. Well, what if this happened to someone? What if they really did lose that much time? What if no one else knows they lost it? What if they were living life and doing all these normal things? And that's kind of how Chloe's story started. My dog is visiting. This is Yeti. Hello. Sorry, my little dude mascot. We'll send him away. Go lay down. So that is 6 months later. That's kind of what inspired the book for me. Is I like the idea of a book that kind of creeps you out and keeps you guessing. I was always attracted to that when I was younger. So those are the books I write, and that's what inspired 6 months later. So my next question was to explain my writing process. So that is going to be a fun one to answer too, because I think being an author, we go to a lot of events together. So I have answered this question with every kind of author out there, and it's always so interesting to see what other authors say. So some authors are really regimented and organized, and they go through and immediately well, I plot out my story, and then I have an outline, and then I have cards, and I'm over there in the background going, I have no idea what you're talking about. So my process for writing is I usually have a flash scene. I call it my inspiration scene. Something kind of pops into my head, like the dream that I had about Chloe. Or for Gone Too Far, I actually had a couple of things happen. Like I knew a photographer, my cousin's a photographer, and she said once to me, sometimes I hide behind my camera, and that really stuck with me. And then I heard a story about a girl who had gotten into a vigilante mess. That stuck with me. So I usually have an inspiring scene. And from there, I get this great idea. It starts blooming. There's always what if questions. What if this? What if that? And it starts to kind of explode in my head. But I'm crazy, yo. I'm not totally organized and together. So I don't have a map or a timeline. At that point is when it kind of turns crazy on me. So I start the writing process. I write frantically, but that is really like a whole huge pile of word vomit. That's what I call it. It's poopy. It's a poopy first draft. It's really a mess. So I have to go through and edit a lot. So my writing process is really kind of fast and furious initially, but editing is much slower. A lot of color-coded notebooks. I should have brought one. That would have been a good idea for you guys to see. I do at that point get super organized because I have to, because at that point there's no excuses. I have to get the book right. So that's kind of my process. There's also a lot of crying, a lot of Starbucks, a lot of sleepless nights, and if I'm lucky, sushi and chocolate, but not together because that's gross. So that's my writing process. Do you have any tips for young writers? I do, and I hope that I have many young writers in the audience right now. I would have loved to do something like this when I was younger, and we just didn't have anything like this available at all. My biggest recommendation is what you're doing right now. You're talking to an author, like get my email. Someone here can give it to you for sure. Your librarian can track it down. It's absolutely available on my website. Email authors questions. Read as many books as you can. Not just the books that you know you're going to love, but books that you're like, I'm not sure. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. When you have a book that you love, keep track of why. What did you love? Did you love that the character accomplished big things? Did you love that the setting was so elaborate? If you read a book you don't love, that is just as important. Why? What went wrong for you? Was your character too perfect? Too much of a mess? What happened for you that made it feel wrong? Those are the things that teach you about being a writer, more than writing classes and anything else, though those things are wonderful. I believe that really immersing yourself in fiction is the best way to really learn about fiction. So do that. Talk to writers. Most of us really want you guys to reach out to us. So absolutely email us, pick our brains. We're here for you. That's why we're doing this job. So use that to your advantage. And talk to librarians. You are surrounded by book lovers. They know so much. They are truly the champions of this industry. So talk to them too. Okay. So let's see. Do you have, and those are my tips for young writers. Let me see. Oh, I just got a really good one. You mentioned notebooks. Do you keep each story in a separate notebook? I actually print my books because I write them online and I'll do one editing pass like on my computer, but when it's really time for me to look at a book and decide what a hot mess it is, I need to step back and look at it like a reader, and I like to read on paper. So I actually pay Kinko's a ridiculous amount of money to print and bind my book so it's in a spiral bound, and then I have one for each. Oh, my husband is bringing it in. Could you take the dog out? Here's one right here. This is actually the one that's coming out this October. It's My Secret to Tell. So then this one's not color coded because it's a later pass, but I have comments and X's that would make you feel so wonderful about yourself. It would be really good. So I do have a notebook for each one. And I also have notebooks that I keep notes in, but those do sometimes overlap. They're not as quite specific. Okay. So we have, oh, I have mentioned to many librarians that my books are great for reluctant readers, and somebody asked me tonight why. That's a great question. I love that. So thank you to whoever asked me that. The reason that my books are good for reluctant readers is I have ADHD and I have 2 children with ADHD. So because of that, because I'm easily distracted and I'm easily pulled out of a story, I tend to write stories that suck you in right away. In fact, my most common reader email is, oh my gosh, it's 4 in the morning and your book kept me up all night, which sorry, not sorry though. That's really what I want to do. I want you to be up and enjoying it and unable to put the book down. So I feel like I'm doing my job if you're turning those pages. But I do structure my stories in a way, it is intentional. Like I want you to constantly be wondering how she's getting out of this or what's happening next or what on earth does that mean? Like I want it to be a continual pull into the next chapter. That's very intentional, which is why it is good for reluctant readers, because it's not a slow book. I don't tend to write books that take time to develop. So that's the answer for that. Do I have any non-YA books? I do, but none that I can really talk about yet. I probably have a middle grade that I'm working on now, so we'll see what happens with that. And then I do have some adult fiction that I'm working on as well, which is still kind of thriller based. I really like scary stories. What does that say about me as a person? I'm not sure, but I do. I like creepy stories, and not like terrify you, Brett, you know, somebody's coming after you with a knife. It's not like that. I like stories that make you like, I don't know what's happening here. Somebody asked me about my favorite TV shows. So to give you an idea of some of those, that would be, well, until the final season, Lost. Lost was wonderful, right? Like there was a polar bear, and then there are things, and there's shadows in the woods, and then the others, and everything is crazy. Except my problem with Lost, God love them, is that they didn't tie it together in a way that I felt was cohesive. I felt like they hadn't quite sorted everything out, and maybe they had to kind of do this to get out of it, because maybe they'd opened too many cans of worms. I can't imagine what those guys went through, and they created a beautiful TV series, so I am not knocking them. They did a great job, but I was kind of bummed at the end, you know, at the way everything kind of unfolded. I have also liked a ton of CW shows. Yes, I am definitely a teen writer. I was a huge Vampire Diaries fan. Recently, I've been totally into the 100. Holy cannoli. Bellamy Blake. Hello. Can I get a little Bellamy love on my feed? There are just so many great things going on with the 100. That's a show I really hope that makes it. What else do I like TV show wise? Oh, it's old, but I know a few of the librarians out there will at least hear me on this one. Firefly, the show that should never have gone away. I'm a brown coat for life. So those are a few. And then long, long ago back in the day, I was even a Buffy fan. So that'll answer some of those. Let me take a look down. Memory loss. Okay, so I had a question that memory loss seems to be a bit of a theme tonight. How can taking away a character's memory enable an author to explore possibilities and unusual plot twists? So things with memory loss, I never set out to write a memory loss book. And when I did, it was shocking to me how many were out there. We were like, wow, there are a lot of us doing this. Mine was a little bit different than some, because in many memory loss books, there's an actual either magical element or some sort of like accident. You know, a lot of amnesia books to me seem to center on, she's forgotten and we have to help her remember. So I loved the idea of being able to play with other people not knowing that she forgot. And there's a reason Chloe can't tell them. Anybody who's read it can kind of allude to that. I can't say much without giving some of the book away, but so I enjoyed that. But I think anytime you're dealing with memory loss, you're taking away one of your character's most precious assets, and that is their control of their mind. You know, I mean, can you think of if you woke up tomorrow and all your friends were talking about yesterday, but you didn't remember it? That's pretty scary. I mean, what did you do? What could have happened? You know, Chloe wakes up and she's got a different boyfriend. She's got different grades. Her best friend won't speak to her. What the heck happened? So it affords a writer a lot of opportunities to explore some really unsettling themes, and it really gets a lot of conflict brewing. Here's another tip for young writers out there. Stories, the number one thing you need, guys, it's conflict. If you have a story about a girl who wakes up and she eats breakfast and then she pets her dog and she goes to school and her boyfriend is like so great, there's no story. We're just writing about somebody's day. That's a diary entry. A story is she wakes up, falls, breaks her leg, gets into a car accident. Things have to be wrong. She wants something in this story, but she can't get it. So memory loss, I think, affords writers a really obvious, I want to remember. But obviously that's easier said than done. So, okay, favorite TV shows, notebooks. Oh, who are my favorite authors? This is so hard. Guys, where are you when I need to look at you? I need to see you all now. Okay, so I'm a writer, which means asking me for my favorite, I don't know, my favorite writer is kind of like asking me what my favorite day ever is. I have 3 children, all of their birthdays, all of, you know, like there are so many things that you can pick here. You know how it is. I would say some of my all-time favorites, I did love Dean Koontz and Stephen King. Those are 2 adult authors. In the YA world, my newest author crush is absolutely Rainbow Rowell. Eleanor and Park and Fangirl are phenomenal books and absolutely worthy of being read by everyone out there. Of course, I like John Green. I think his work is outstanding. My favorite of his is actually Looking for Alaska, which is not the one that's, you know, not The Fault in Our Stars, but I still love that one best. Some others, Libba Bray. Oh, Libba Bray. I love Libba Bray. Ruta Sepetys, who I actually don't know how to pronounce her name right, which is really embarrassing, but her book, let me see, I want to make sure I say it right. This is so close to the other, and all the librarians out here know what I'm talking about. I think it's called Between Shades of Grey. Yep, Stephanie just messaged me. Between Shades of Grey is absolutely just amazing, an absolute must read for everyone. So many writers out there. I know I'm forgetting zillions. I usually keep a list on my website that does rotate. I actually need to update it right now, but I have a ton out there for that. So, okay. Where would I go if I could travel anywhere in the world? Do I have to pick one place? Totally not fair. I'm not. I'm cheating because nobody's here to yell at me, so I'm just going to pick a bunch of places. I've never been to Europe, which makes me really sad. So I really would love to see Greece and Italy. I'd really love to see Scandinavia. Here's a crazy story. Everybody in this audience has probably done your Ancestry project, or at least it's huge in Ohio. Like, we always have to do an Ancestry project. I think it's in middle school that it starts. My kids had to do it a little early because of a program they're in. And when we did this project, we all thought we were Irish and German, and I don't know, just whatever. We didn't really know. We didn't really care. We didn't think we had anything of consequence. So my dad called me one day and he's like, hey, we're actually from Sweden. And I'm like, oh, Dad, you're crazy. He wasn't. Like, I literally tried to like make my dad a liar. So I'm like looking back through all of this stuff, you know, I'm researching online. I wasted days. This is what writers do, guys. This is what we really do. We waste days procrastinating things. So that's what I did. I researched, and we actually, our family did come from Sweden. So I'd love to go there because that's really interesting. Now I'm like, who knew? I didn't know anything about this, but we were actually at one point Vikings. My son thought that was awesome, FYI. So I would definitely go there. There's several places that I would love to visit, like that are nature related, which I don't know if that counts, but I would love to visit some of the major parks. I would love to visit some of the islands, you know, like the Galapagos. Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. So things like that. I mean, if you really just gave me a limitless budget, I would never come home again. I can write on the road. That can happen. So I would just do that. Okay, so if I could meet anyone dead or alive, who would you choose? Who would I choose? I wasn't ready for this. Can you tell? Like, dead air, huh? I don't know. I'm going to cop out, and I think I would just see my mom and dad again. My mom and dad have both passed, so I think I would just go hang out with them again, honestly. If I had to pick someone famous, I would probably meet Ernest Hemingway because he was so angry. And I'd love to just sit down and be like, why are you so angry? What's going on? What's going on in there? I'd love to play therapist a little bit in that brain of his. So that might be fun to do because I do like some of his work a lot, but he is an angry, angry man. All right. What do I like to do when I am not writing? What is this not writing thing you speak of? I don't really know what that is. Once you're a writer, and this may not be true for every writer, but I have been on deadline since I've been bought. Like, my first book came out 6 months later, came out. And that book came out in October of 2013. And since then, I've had a book due at least every year, if not sooner. So my 4th book is being written right now, which I think that was actually a question on here. I should answer that. I'll do that, Stephanie. I haven't forgotten, I promise. So when I'm not writing, it's rare. I'm usually doing a lot of speaking. So I speak to a lot of schools, libraries. I do writing classes, things like that. I do really like to read, and I don't get to do it enough. I love to eat fair food. I'm only thinking of that because I went to a local fair last night, and oh my gosh, funnel cakes, right? What is that about? That's delicious. So I like to eat fair food. I do like to bake. I like to watch my kid. He plays hockey, so I love to watch his hockey games. And I like to hike. I like to do a lot of things that seem lovely and I never have time for anymore. What is that time thing? That would be interesting, but lots of stuff. I am kind of an outdoorsy person, but not a camper, never a camper. And that leads me into my new book. My fourth book, look, I reached for it. There's no fourth book yet. They don't have a cover. I have to finish writing it first. I'll have to do that for them. So my fourth book, I say, is a cross between the Blair Witch Project and the Breakfast Club. And I love it. And this is coming from an author who never really loves what I write, so it's kind of exciting for me. I'm really excited about this book. I'm really looking forward to seeing it come into the world. It's very scary. It's about a group of kids who ends up on a camping trip with words written on their arms and something very creepy amiss. So that one's been really fun. I'm actually writing it now. I was actually writing it right before I came in here and did this, so that's kind of fun. All right, Stephanie, what have I missed and where are my crazy questions? I'm looking for the crazy ones. I'm trying to think of some other ones that I've been asked. I just had an event recently where, what did they ask? They asked, if you were a fruit, what would you be? A fruit? I feel a little fruity sometimes. I'm kind of crazy. But I said probably something really awful, like, you know, some sort of prickly fruit or something that like is all sharp on the edges because I have a weird thing, or those blood oranges, which look really creepy. But then I think, what does that say about me? Once again, like, isn't there something good I can say? When you're a thriller writer, it's hard. You know, what can you do? All right, let me see. I just got one in and I lost it. My window went away. Oh, Stephanie, I'm sorry, you guys. Okay. There it is. I'm sorry that took a minute, guys. Okay, so how do I feel about LGBT teens and teen fiction? I feel it's a problem. I do. But I think it's one that writers, I can tell you that discussion is really up and strong in the writer community. We are all talking about it. We are all including this in our thought processes, like what's going on with this. But I don't think it's just limited to a sexuality issue or even a racial issue. I think it's limited to an otherness issue. For me, that's what I think is kind of a problem that we're all working on. Like, okay, let's break this mold. Who are we not including enough of in our fiction? Is it, you know, what about people with disabilities? What about people who are from a different socioeconomic background than us? What about people from a different culture, a different religion? It's about far more than race and sexuality. It's about far more than one simple conversation. But what I'm excited about, and that I can tell you with complete honesty, is that writers everywhere are talking about it. And I think that for me as a writer, that's really exciting to see, because it's been a challenge to all of us. You know, we have all, well, I can't say that. I can't universally say that. I know a lot of authors who have come back and said, gosh, I should have thought more about this, and I will now. And, you know, it stinks that you have to have that conversation with yourself and say, man, I really wish I would have considered this more. But we are considering it now, and I feel really excited about that. Like, we are really pushing as a community of writers to change this, and I think some really good things are coming from it. So I'm excited about that. The other question was, how hard was it to get your first book published? Oh, guys, I'm not gonna lie. Getting your first book published is, well, every book is difficult in its own way. My first book was very easy to write. However, I wrote 4 before I wrote that one that didn't get published. So how hard was it to write? Well, I don't know. I had to write 5 books to get there. That seems hard. That book in particular, 6 months later, wasn't terribly difficult to write. Editing it was really hard. I had really massive editing problems with that book. Gone Too Far, my baby, my darling, my second book. This book hovered over me with a knife. Sometimes I dreamed about it at night, like it would come at me. It was so hard to write, I can't even express it to you. Like, it was unbelievably difficult to write. However, the editing process, well, the first run was still writing. I was still rewriting, but the actual editing part was pretty easy because I had written myself to death on this one, and it really wasn't terrible. My secret to tell was hard in other ways. Like, you know, it just kind of depends. At the end of every book, I will tell you this: I have 3 children. I have published 3 books. Having my 3 children was easier by far than writing any of my books. By far. I would do it again. I would do it again. I'm like, I would rather do labor. I would rather do 4 days of labor than ever write a book again. It's hard. But obviously I'm keep doing it. So there's got to be something to it, right? So all of you who want to be writers who think, oh, it's not going to be that hard, it will be. And all of you out there who want to be writers who think it's going to be too hard, well, it's not, because I'm still here and most of us are. So there's that. All right. Here's another one that I saw that blipped up on my screen. How do you feel about the homogenization of YA lit? Do you think it's a new issue or a flaw in the genre? I really wish I could clarify this question with whoever asked it. There are times, because it's so dependent on the store and how it's shelved. You know, you go to some stores and there's really great genre separation. Sometimes that can be hurtful. I know a lot of writers who, like my books are thrillers, but they also have, they're also contemporary. All of my books are contemporary. They're not paranormal. They're not supernatural. So where does a thriller that's contemporary that has a little bit of romance, where does that go? Where do you put it? So if they separate it out too much, that can be really difficult as a writer. You end up, you know, if I go to a romance section from someone who only wants to read romance, they might not be happy. There's a lot going on in my books that has nothing to do with that. I have a lot of male readers. They don't care. So if it's the other way, you know, if somebody just wants a hardcore horror and maybe they're hoping that that thriller is only horror with nothing else wrapped up into it, like real life issues, they might be disappointed too. So I guess from that front, I'm kind of like, no, I would prefer that it be broader and you take each book as it stands. But in honesty, that's a personal preference. And I feel that way with all genres. Like, it kind of annoys me when I see a really good thriller and it's only in the thriller section at Barnes & Noble, adult thrillers. I'm like, why isn't it in general fiction? Everybody should read this book. So I feel like genres, that can kind of get to be a tricky issue. Am I a feminist? Okay, first of all, hold on. We're going to back up. Yes, I am. And we'll get to that in a minute. But what are your feelings towards Star Trek? Oh my God, right? I'm so in love with it. And I'm loving that somebody, well, I'm hoping that somebody out there is a Star Trek fan with me. However, I am a rare breed because I do love Star Trek and I really do like the reboot. I am all about the reboot. I think they did it beautifully. They did really well. Maybe that's really bad of me to say, but I like it. I'm really happy with it. But I also am a Star Wars fanatic. My dog, well, I have 2 dogs. I have a dog named Yeti. You saw him earlier. And then I have another dog, a new one. His name is Wookiee. What does that tell you about my life? What does that tell me about me? So yes, I am a Star-loving fan of all sizes, but I don't really care one way or the other. I am good with Star Trek. I am very good with Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Boba Fett, all the rest of it. Salacious Crumb. I dressed up as Salacious Crumb one Halloween. That was a great costume. So yeah, I feel really good about it. Give me that Star Trek love. Okay, am I a feminist? Yes, I am. Everybody defines that word differently, but I'm definitely a feminist. I definitely feel very strongly. One of the big passions that I have for writing that I talk about in panels pretty frequently and that I talk about when I go to school visits is one of the reasons I write for teens is that I noticed a trend, not now so much, but earlier, I noticed a trend in YA fiction that was becoming very concerning to me. I loved YA, but I kept reading these heroines and they were all so nice and good. And they all got perfect grades and they all read a lot and they were shy and they were just not beautiful at all, except that they were completely beautiful in every possible way. I found myself so annoyed with those girls. And that's not fair. It's not like those girls inherently are bad, but I just felt like we almost were sending this message to the world like, hey, if when you're 17 years old, you are not totally together with perfect grades, a perfect life, totally nice, never make a mistake, then your future is kind of ugly. And that's just not how I see the world at all. I think that when you're in your teens, you are screwing up. I sure did. And it's okay. Like, that's a part of it. That's a part of the life. I think it's kind of beautiful in a way. I know all of you out there are like, yeah, not real beautiful, Natalie. Not feeling beautiful in my high school. That's okay. But it is. There's a part of it that's fantastic because you're figuring out what makes you tick. And I wanted my characters to figure out what makes them tick. So I do not write perfect girls. All of my heroines have pretty major flaws. They're strong or they're stubborn. Chloe was a slacker. Piper's opinionated. My newest girl, Emmy, is a people pleaser who's a nervous wreck. you know, so I wanted girls that had real issues because I had issues and my friends had issues. So yeah, I am a feminist, and that is kind of why my characters aren't perfect, and they aren't always kick butt either. I think that's kind of a problem too, in a way. Like, you know, we're not all the chosen one, okay? Like, there's no prophecy over me, but I still have to live my life, and so do all of you. So my girls are typically not chosen, at least not in a good way, but they are, you know, they find their way, they find their power. So did I see another one come in? Oh, do I think I will ever write a science fiction book? Let it be so. Make it so. Make it so. I want to so much. Like, everything in me says, yes, the precious, do that thing. That sounds so awesome. And I do have a book that kind of leans in that direction. However, I haven't found the right idea yet. I have read some phenomenal science fiction, but I haven't found the idea that really speaks to me to the point that I'm like, okay, this is going to pull from my strength as a writer, because you recognize your strengths. Like, when I first started writing, I tried to write epic fantasy. Anyone out there who has read my books knows this is not an epic fantasy girl. I do not do page upon page of world building and purple skies, and no, I'm not going to be good at that. Like, there's too much world building for me. So I need to find a sci-fi idea that's going to fit into kind of the universe that I tend to write in and my writing strengths. So not that I wouldn't stretch. I would be very happy to stretch if I found the right idea, but I just haven't found one that totally sparked me yet. Do I have a Tumblr? You're my, oh, I love you. You're my new favorite heart eye emoji. I love you. I do have a Tumblr, but like, dude, I'm the creepy author that just like looks at other people's Tumblrs all the time. Because, like, what am I going to do? All I'm going to do is fangirl with all the rest of you and be like, oh my gosh, I love him too. He's so great. I love that show. I love this movie. Like, that would be me. So I always feel really ridiculous on Tumblr. Like, dude, I should be a grown-up and stuff. But obviously I don't want to. Look at what I'm writing. But yeah, no, I am on Tumblr, but I'm hardly ever on there. I am on Instagram a little bit more often. I'm on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter a lot right now because I'm on deadline. Eek! And then I'm never on Facebook, like literally never. But Twitter and Instagram are the ways you can find me. And then I do reply to my email too. I always reply to readers. So thank you, though. That's so nice. And then hold on. Oh, I missed one. See, I can't keep track. Any closing thoughts for us? Okay. First of all, I'm so excited that I got to close out your night tonight. I hope that you guys are still awake and talking about great books. I hope that you all send me something that you loved reading. That would be so awesome for me, because I actually will be off deadline in a month. So I would totally love it if you guys would tweet me and tweet the world. Like, what are you reading right now that you totally love? Tell us about it. And then that way we can tell others. Help us spread the love of reading and keep reading and writing. That's pretty much it for me.
Oh, thank you so much. You were fantastic. Thank you so much for closing out our author visits for us tonight, Natalie, and we really appreciate it. Everyone else out in National Teen Lock-In world, I hope you're having a fantastic lock-in, and keep up the fun. And I hope those of you who are doing a true overnight lock-in, I hope you make it through the whole night. And otherwise, keep your librarians on their toes the rest of the night and have fun. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.